Welcome to the One Gang Worldwide podcast, your ultimate ride into the world of motorcycles. Visit cyclesworldwide.com where we offer a completely free marketplace for everything motorcycles. Join our One Gang community where you can connect, share info, and swap stories with riders from all over the world. Join for free at cyclesworldwide.com and be a part of the One Gang community right now. On today's episode of the One Gang Worldwide podcast, we're adventuring into the world of racing with Brad Anassis, a racer whose pedigree and prowess on the track are matched only by his entrepreneurial spirit. Brad, the son of South African drag racing legend Gerry Anassis, has not only continued the family racing legacy, but has also expanded into the business of performance with his company, Vykon Exhaust. In this episode, Brad will share tales from his racing career, insight into the current racing climate, and discuss the intricacies of designing performance exhaust systems. So let's throttle up and get a first-hand look at the legacy and innovation of Brad Anassis right here on the One Gang podcast.
And that's what led into us winning, was I was very passionate about what I was doing. I knew how to win, I knew what it's going to take to win, and I knew which riders I had to get.
One Gang Worldwide podcast, brought to you by Keyboard Motorcycle Shipping. Since 1978, Keyboard Motorcycle Shipping has been the trusted name in transporting motorcycles safely across the country. With custom-designed pallets and air ride trailers, your bike is secure and protected every step of the way. By choosing Keyboard Motorcycle Shipping, you're supporting a dedicated small business that prioritizes quality and customer satisfaction. Ship with a peace of mind, knowing your motorcycle is in expert hands.
Please visit shippingmymotorcycle.com. That's shippingmymotorcycle.com. And now, back to our show.
Today on the One Gang Worldwide podcast, we have Brad Anassis from South Africa, founder of Vykon Exhaust. We are excited to hear your stories today. Thanks for joining us, Brad.
Awesome. Yeah. Lovely to be here. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks for coming on, buddy, man. We got a lot of great questions. Your career definitely spans a long, long time in this industry. So we'll kind of start it off like we do all of our podcasts, let the listeners kind of get an understanding of. Tell us a little bit about where you grew up, what your childhood was like. And in addition to, your dad was a pretty well-known drag racer. So let's start off with the youth and kind of get into your dad a little bit.
Yeah, I've had a very privileged upbringing and a young engineering crowd with really hands-on, growing up in South Africa in the 70s and in the two-stroke era. So I've managed as a youngster in the motorcycle fraternity, managed to get through two-strokes and four-strokes. And that's something that the youngsters of today didn't have the privilege of getting through. So been very fortunate to grow up with a dad that was a motorcycle funny as a youngster, and he had Zundaps and Galeras, and I hear about all these little 50 cc's that rev to 18,000. And grew up in South Africa in a workshop. My dad was a drag racer. I wanted to go road racing and eventually touched on flat track because that was what Kenny Roberts was doing at the time, and he set the world alight. And I followed in those footsteps, went drag racing, then went onto Speedway, genuine Speedway.
Hey, Brad, before we get too far ahead with the racing part, let me ask you this. What was your first bike? Do you remember the first bike that you got your sea legs on?
Yeah, so we were fortunate. My dad built these little Yamaha little 50 trials bikes. I remember vaguely as a young kid having one of those. My first road bike was a Suzuki Gamma 50 two-stroke, and then came the RGB 250 and the RMs and the motocross bikes, and then it evolved into GSXRs and so on. So, yeah.
And your dad started racing how many years before you were born?
Well, before I was born, they were racing already, 50s and then 125 circuit racing, and then went drag racing. So when I was born, I grew up in the drag racing scene.
Nice.
That's cool. What was it like with your dad? Were you in the pits with him? What kind of role did you play when he was racing?
So I was always full of mud and dirt and running around under grandstands, your typical 5-6-year-old. And I remember being chased around. I looked for the commentators were always calling for me, and I was either in some guy's car or waiting at the end of the strip, and I would ride my bicycle all over the drag strips. So yeah, I
That's
can
awesome.
remember, and then as I got into it, trying to understand this drag racing phenomenon, and then 13, 14, 15, 16, and 16, I wanted to carry on. I wanted to start racing. That's when
Nice.
my whole career started off.
So you
That's
traveled
cool.
with your dad pretty much to every race when you were a kid
Yeah.
before you got into racing yourself?
Yeah, look, South Africa is not a very big country. I'd say it's probably the size of Florida, from top to bottom, and we lived in the middle, so it wasn't far. We lived in the capital city called Pretoria, and the drag strips were probably at least an hour from our house in every direction. There was a few drag strips, so it wasn't a very far journey. Leave home, I remember in these old vans. My dad had really old vans in those days, and we'd be traveling to the strip and unload and set up.
Nice.
Yeah, he would rent.
That's cool. So
That
how
is-
old were you when you got on your first 50? Were you that 5 or 6 year old you were talking about?
Yeah. As a youngster, but was never allowed to race. My dad didn't want us to race. I got a brother. He wasn't into motorcycles at all, so I was the one going to all the tracks.
Gotcha.
And yeah, so when I was 13, I wanted to start racing, and finances were pretty tough, and we had bikes. We always had bikes to play with, but we never had racing bikes. And then at the age of 13, I got myself a job in a motorcycle shop in the capital city called Vykon Accessories.
Nice.
And I started earning commission, and I started selling parts
Oh,
and
cool.
and
At
decent
13?
parts. At 13, I was working in a motorcycle shop. And
That's
13,
awesome.
14, 15, I made money. At 16, I bought my own RM80,
Nice.
and I went
That's
flat
cool.
track racing, and that's where it all started.
Yeah, look,
Um,
I was going to ask you about that. You started racing at the Mayhem track in
Yeah.
Pretoria, correct?
That's it.
Let me ask you a question. How did your early experiences shape your approach to racing? I mean, coming from, a dad that's an extremely well-known drag racer, right? You've been basically grew up in the pits, learning from everything from top to bottom, and then getting into the racing yourself. How did that help you out?
So the first thing my dad did was take the front brake lever off. We were
Nice.
we were racing flat track, so we didn't have brakes.
Right.
Let me tell you, by the time I got to my first road race event when I was 18, and everybody was on the brakes, I was going like, "Why are you guys on the brakes? Leave the brakes!" And I did crash. Trust me, I crashed. But in my first year of road racing, I won a South African national championship race.
That
And
was
I'd
at
never
16, right? You were 16
was-
years old?
I'd never seen asphalt before. So going from flat track really set the pace, and it set the tone for me having to enter a corner at a certain speed with trusting myself and
Right.
sliding the front and bringing the rear around. So by the time I had gone road racing, but here's the kicker. So I'm working in this motorbike shop, and I'm selling Shui Motul Metzler, and I'm selling Michelin, and I'm selling Arai helmets. So as I'm selling products, I'm the number one salesman in the shop because my dad was famous, and everybody would
Yeah.
come into the shop and say, "Hey, Brad, what should I use? I know you, Gerry Anassis' son," and I would earn commission. So I would shoot the lights up, and I was really making money. But the best thing was I was selling great brands,
Nice.
and those distributors ended up sponsoring me. So by the time I went to the first race, I had the best leathers, the best helmet. I knew what was the best tires. So I've been following the racing scene, and I've been selling the stuff.
Cool.
So I went racing, and day one I was sponsored.
Take us through your first victory, man. I mean, that's got to be a pretty cool feeling
Yeah,
for people
yeah.
who've never raced before.
And-
Getting ready for that. What was that feeling like?
Yeah, and I still remember my very first race at Kyalami Grand Prix circuit, and I got lapped, and I was like, I went there and I was fast into the corners, but I was shit coming out, and I needed to work this out, and then I crashed a lot, and I hurt myself, and I lost my confidence, and in the race, I'll never forget my first race, I got lapped. Well, 9 races later, I beat all those guys in my first year because I just had to put the pieces together, and I had to
Yeah.
work out what's going to make me fast. I knew how to go fast, and I had all the right equipment. I just needed to understand the technicality of asphalt circuit racing, which I put together, went testing. And my first race, I'll never forget. I didn't even scrape my knees. We had knee sliders and everything. Well, I didn't put my knees down because I hadn't got the style yet. It was all about
Mhm.
eventually arriving at style and how to go fast. And so it set the tone. And then we had to go to 2 years military in South Africa, compulsory 2 years. So I was 18, finished school, bang into the army. And away you go. Come out the army 2 years later, and then I moved to the States. I said to myself, I want to go and tackle a dream. Let me come and race in America. And because I was selling products for Shui Motor Metzeler, they helped me in the US. They sent me up here. And I came over as a 21-year-old kid, landed in San Francisco. First race was at Daytona. And I bought a van and I bought a bike from a guy called Trip Nobles, a very famous American road racing guy. And I drove from San Francisco, and they were in the Carolinas somewhere, picked up my bike, drove down to Daytona, and the rest was history as it's laid out in my CV.
That's wild. You just touched on it a little bit, but I was curious about the period where you're transitioning, dirt, drag, road. What were some of the other challenges that you faced in that time besides the knee down and the cornering and the style?
Yeah. Hey, what was really interesting was speedway, genuine speedway, and I've still got my speedway bike. It's still hanging in my parents' house. The Java 500cc, no brakes, methanol burning, oil out the bottom. It wasn't a recycled motor in those days. And that I still remember well. And that added a lot of G-forces and excitement and balance. And then my dad made me ride a unicycle just to get my balance right, so I can wheelie anything because you got a balance point.
Brilliant.
Yeah. So there was a lot of key features that contributed to my road racing career, and getting that all spot on. There are a few things I wish I had done better. And one was surround myself with proper suspension engineers, which I only did later when I started owning a team. And owning a team, which we'll dial on later, was very interesting because I knew what the shortfalls were of my racing career. And I wanted to put a team together with the right toolbox and the right people. And that's what came later in my racing career.
Nice.
But before that was road racing for Ducati in the World Championships. I spent some time with Suzuki Australia, a lot of factory rides in South Africa through the years. Always factory back. I was very fortunate. So my first year, and that my dad did help. So when I got my first road race bike, my Suzuki RGV 250, it's because my dad ran the Suzuki drag race team, and he was a technician for the road race team, and looked after a lot of top guys. I managed to slot into a second rider for a factory team from day one.
That's awesome.
That's cool.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that is
So
incredible.
you mentioned the U.S. and you also mentioned Australia. You've raced internationally. What are some of the most memorable times, either on the track or off the track?
Now, Phillip Island in Australia in the rain, World Super Sport. I think it was 1999, 2000, somewhere around about there. The most horrific, scary race I've ever done in my life.
Wow. Can you take us a little bit into that?
Yeah, and they canceled the second heat for World Superbikes because it was a total downpour, and I was in the downpour in the Super Sport race. So yeah, I mean, how I got through that in one piece was absolutely horrific. I became pretty much a good rainmaster race. Well, from the speedway and the flat track, I was really good in the wet.
Nice.
I probably won 95% of the races in the rain. And that came from balancing and feeling and unicycles and wheeling and doing all of those crazy things, just understanding the balance of a bike. But yeah, Phillip Island was horrific, absolutely horrific. And it crashed, and I thought I was going to drown. The bike landed on top of me, and I went sliding into this huge water pool. And I really thought I was going to drown because I was under the water. And you can imagine, eventually the marshals come running and pick the bike up and pick you up. And so, man, I've had some exciting experiences.
Yeah, man, that's a little scary. No doubt about that. Let's take it out. Let's switch gears a little bit. In 2000, you kind of shifted your focus more to business with Portable Shade. What motivated this change for you, and how did you manage this transition from being a professional racer to now a professional entrepreneur?
Yeah, and that's a great question because that was actually ignited in my journey to America. So I arrive in San Francisco, I drive across the states, and I see all this wow factor. I mean, you're coming from Africa to America. It's like changing from first to sixth, just flat out. You get here and you get blown away with everything and the size and the magnitude, and you're seeing the world in a different manner. I picked up business side of racing, and what people needed in and around the pits, and tents had just been invented by two guys, one called Easy Up, which are still around, and then the other guy was KD Canopy. They were two partners who founded the Fold Up Tent. I called them up and I said, "Hey guys, I want to sell your tents in South Africa." And they said, "You from where?" Africa. Africa. Yes, and they just laughed at me and they went, "Sure, we got no time for Africa, And I went with my tail between my legs back to South Africa, and I said to my dad, "Hey, lucky we had a fabrication business." I said, "Hey Dad, I've seen this product and I want to make it." And I did some sketch and I built one, and I started making them. And
How old were you around this time?
so I must have been 24, 25 at that
Okay.
stage, traveling back from America, creating opportunities. I was exporting body kits also to America. I was bringing body kits out here. There was a company back in the day called AirTech that was doing really well, and I needed body kits for my own bike, and we were making them in South Africa, and I wanted one here, so I ended up making my own and bringing. So my entrepreneurial spirit kicked in too early. And I say to myself, I wish I had focused more on a racer than a businessman. But the business I knew would pay the bills,
That's right.
and I wanted the nice cars and the toys, and racing in those days wasn't paying huge money. So everybody had a second job. And my second job was going to be creating my own entrepreneurial spirit inside myself.
Brad, for people not familiar what portable shade was, can you take us a little bit into what that product is and how
Sure.
it impacted the motorcycle industry?
Yeah, and portable shade grew up really nicely. It's a fold-up tent is the base product called portable shade. It was a fold-up tent, like you see in all the pit lanes and the motocross, the road racing, drag racing community in the pits. And then I started bolting on other products onto them, flag systems and display systems. And as I traveled around the world doing exhibitions, I realized there was a gap in the market for branding, portable branding. So I designed and kept the factory evolving in new products all the time.
Nice.
Eventually put in my own big printing machines, print direct to textile. We were printing 1,000 square foot an hour on digital cloth on large format. I took a trip over to Japan and ended up buying some Japanese big printing textile machine, and it just evolved, and the monster grew up. In 8 years, we employed 100 people. The factory was 50,000 square feet, and it was at offices around the world: Dubai, Australia, Japan, Canada. Yeah, in the US, we opened one in Cocoa Beach.
Wow.
Had partners down here, and the company was growing up really, really fast. In fact, it outgrew my capacity to eventually run it, and I sold half the business and then exited just before COVID. So that was a long journey.
Talk about
And
perfect timing, though, right?
yeah, 2 weeks before COVID, I managed to
Wow.
exit.
Wow. Sheesh. That's so going from racing into the entrepreneurial stuff that you went through with Portable Shade, and then coming back into racing with Suzuki's team and leading that charge up. What was that like coming back into the industry in more of a managerial role?
Yeah, so going back again a few years, eventually Suzuki approached me. I'd stopped. I went car racing for 2 years, but it was a bit boring. And then I grabbed myself a drag bike, and I thought, okay, I'm going to tackle the drag race scene in South Africa. We dabbled a bit here in the US. I came and I raced for Kawasaki, and I met Rick Gadsden. And then I was approached by Suzuki to run their road racing team. And I said, sure, I'm up for the task, but I knew what and how to do it. And this is what I said earlier, that I bolted on my shortfalls in my racing career. I didn't want to make those same mistakes
Mistake, right.
again. So I then engineered myself with the right people, the right products. I knew what I needed. I built my own workshops. And and I put this team of professionals together. And interesting, there's a lot of those kids and the dads who are now in the US that raced for me back in the days of when I bolted this whole team. There's Cam Peterson, who's currently winning Moto America races. There's Matthew Scholes. There's Robbie Peterson, who's working here. There's quite a few South Africans who came out of this stable of me putting this team together. So I put Suzuki together for 1 year. 2 years we ran Suzuki, and then Honda approached us with a full factory HRC backing program. And we switched to Honda for 4 years, won a lot of championships with a young kid called Lance Isaacs, who's also now here in the US working for the Motors Group. And then we switched over to Kawasaki for 2 years. And I always said to myself, I want to be on the best bike at the time. I don't want to develop a bike. The first year it comes out, I don't want to touch it. But the second year, the ZX10 was going to be really good. The 1 year, the second year it was out. I think it was 2014. Then Yamaha came with the R1. 2016, we changed to Yamaha because I knew how good that bike was going to be. And then in between that, Supersport, we grabbed MB Augustas 675 and got that going.
What did you think of the MV? Great bike?
Yeah, we loved the bike. It was the first year we got it. Cam Peterson, who's winning races now here in America, he won the championship that year on that bike with us. And we had some gearbox issues. So my dad rebuilt the gearbox, and he built his own gearbox for the bike. And yeah, we had to pull a few tricks out the bag to get that MB Augusta to win, which we did. And it was the most magnificent bike. And I wish I had kept one of them, that beautiful motorcycle.
Beautiful
motorcycles. Yeah, then we switched to Yamaha, and I had a kid called Stephen Wittendal race for me. He went on to race Moto2 World Championships. He's now winning a few Spanish championships. And a whole lot of kids come through our stable through the years,
Man, Anassis Racing has definitely achieved some crazy success under your watch. So that's sometimes the best coaches are the ones who don't play the game for a long period of time, or were never particularly the best or with longevity. And it seems like on your end, you as a manager, that, like you said, you took your shortcomings from the recent part, put it into the team. And I mean, you built pretty much a pretty significant dynasty from what it looks like. What are some of the memories that you can walk away with Anassis Racing that you still brings up a big smile to your face these days?
Yeah, we did set the milestone. We're probably the most winningest team in South African history. I think in the short span of about 10 years, we won 13 South African championships.
Wow.
And then I was running a team, running my own drag race program, and setting all the records. I currently still hold all the drag race records in South Africa. Fastest guy ever on 2 wheels on South African soil. And at Feather in my cap, you asked me, what's good memory? I'm the fastest African on 2 wheels in the world. African rider.
How does your dad feel about that?
Well, sadly, he passed away years ago. So I'm sure that he would have been proud.
I think so too.
And I wish that what I know now, if I could have been his team manager at the time, we would have won everything. I really got good at my game. I was winning everything. I never lost a drag race in 7 years. I didn't lose a race. That factory Kawasaki, and they brought Gatson to race me in South Africa. They brought Barry Henson. They brought all the guys. They threw the best of the best. I never lost one race.
Damn.
7 years.
Wow.
So we're talking like 8 rounds a year. And the people eventually would go to my wife and say, hey, please just ask Brad to throw one race. Just one race. It was like, when the guys lined up against me, they had a race on their hands, So they were so nervous that I'd already won the race before we started, right? And I was really good at drag racing. But the road racing was my passion. And that's what bled into us winning. I was very passionate about what I was doing. I knew how to win. I knew what it's going to take to win. And I knew which riders I had to get.
Hey, Brad, quick question. What is the fastest, what is your fastest speed that you've done drag racing?
So as a South African, the fastest I've gone here is in the US, where I went 701 at 210 or 215, somewhere there, mile an hour. In South Africa, The SA record
Holy-
stands at 7.5 at about 205 mile an hour. The
Wow.
tracks are terrible, and it's 1,700 feet above sea level
Oh, wow.
where we're racing. So there's no air. So
Right.
you make so much power anyway, but the tracks are useless. Here in America, you can put it down. So yeah, I'm at 200 mile an hour plus. I'm rider. Yeah, but then I took my road race guys would always go to drag racing with me so I could teach him how to start. There's a lot of photos and memories are good because there'd be photos of the first corner and I know I'd be leading the race, but I'm not in the photo because I'm 10 bike lengths ahead by the first corner.
Gosh.
So the photographers had to take wide action shots of turn one, which didn't make it good for pictures. So yeah, I have some really good memories of leading races and going out ahead. And then while I'm racing, I'm thinking about things which I shouldn't have, you know. But running a team was really good. You know, I was a good motivational guy. They had the best. The guys had the best with the best. There was just no questions asked that they could not win.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Can you unbox that for us a little bit? You said that you were thinking about things that you shouldn't have.
Yeah, while I'm racing, you're thinking about business, you know. That's why I say I wish I had focused more on racing and not so much on business. I think I could have been better. I could have won championships. I finished second and third, probably 8 times myself as a rider. So I won a lot of drag race championships because I was on top of my game. When I was riding, I was 50% on the track and 50% off the track. And I was still running. I was on the podium every race. You know? It wouldn't be a
So
problem to be on a podium, but I know I could have won.
Yeah.
Scary to think what
10
you.
bike lengths.
Yeah, scary to think what could have been if you were 100 in your mind on that.
And I earned the respect of riders around the world, and I made very good friends with a lot of guys because we rode together afterwards on dirt bikes, and we'd spend a lot of time together. And yeah, that did come across, you know.
That's really cool. So you're 10 bike lengths ahead thinking about business.
Yeah, I'm trying to work out how I'm going to make the sale on Monday and the big business that's coming. I'm going to produce product. You know?
Gosh, that's absurd. So next chronological thing, Vykon Exhaust. Tell us what brought that about, what motivated you and inspired you to launch that.
Now, I'm going to try not burst into tears.
No, just go for it, man.
It's very, very close to my heart. I grew up in this factory. My dad was a blue collar worker, and it was very difficult. He was very, very set in his ways, pretty much how I am, you know. But what made it interesting was I had such a great bringing with my dad and his friends who were really hands-on guys. You know, my dad built his own engine, start to finish, castings. We had our own casting foundry. We had machine shop. We had fabrication, welding. We had everything. You know, I had access to all of this, but I was a bit set in my ways where I wanted to go racing and I wanted to do everything. And I got a bit lost, to be honest. And my dad just had the solid foundation of a company called Age Exhaust, started in the 60s. And he built 2-stroke expansion pipes. You know, every piece was cut by hand. There was no laser cutting in those days. So everything was cut by hand and then welded together. And he made 2-stroke pipes. Eventually, mandrel bending came along and he bought a mandrel bender, started building 4-stroke exhaust for the GS Ranger motorcycles. And I watched this whole company evolve and then did my own racing career, as I explained, and then went back and started my own little business, which I started inside Age. My little tent company, Portable Shade, started in a corner in the engineering shop. And eventually kicked me out because I employed 5 people and we were taking up bathroom space and kitchen space. You know, we're old school. We sat down, Greek old school. We had to have lunch every day. And my dad would have lunch with the whole factory. He'd bring his sandwiches, we'd have a big kitchen, and we'd sit down and have lunch. And then we were too many people. So he told me actually to F off out the shop, and I bought a building down the road. And we bought a proper building. And then I got married, had a wife, and she came into the business with me, and we moved down the road. But I kept a little space there for the racing program. And it was nice for my dad to keep his eyes over the racing team. So Age was going along, and then sadly in COVID he passed away. And he passed away because his lungs collapsed, not from COVID, from welding. His lungs were so damaged, and I remember buying him a mask, and I said, "Hey, Dad, you got to wear this mask." And he was always coughing, and he never smoked in his life. Never smoked, never drank. Zero alcohol in our house, no smoking. We were really focused. I really wanted to become world champion. And my brother's a chartered accountant, so he went off on his own journey. And then during COVID, I'd sold portable shade, and we were sitting around, and my dad passes away, and my wife and I look at each other and said, well, what are we going to do now? We were going to move to America. We were going to come here, and I had a job offer, and we couldn't come. So the whole game plan changed. And I said to my wife, I'm going to start my own exhaust pipe company. So I went to the drawing board and I drew a muffler. We call it a silencer. You call it a muffler. I'll talk American because I'm here in America.
That's right.
And I'm racing the American people. I drew this muffler and I 3D printed it, and I started working it out, and I wanted something different. And I was always sponsored by the Acropovics of the world and Arrow and all of these guys. Over the years, we used their pipes. We used AH pipes as well on our bikes. And my dad was a stainless steel guy. He was never a titanium guy. So eventually I come up with this muffler, and my brother takes the company and I take some of the tooling, and I set up on my own. I set up a small fabrication, little 3-man team, and away we go, and we start manufacturing. And that's how Vykon started. Vykon was only born in the middle of COVID. So 2021, end of 21, 22, we started going to the market, and then I started building the fitments and understanding which bikes were popular. And luckily I had my dad's old school tooling, and tooling concept. And the way that they made stuff in the olden days was very different to how it's made now. Right. The components, the mergers are all flared and pressed by hydraulic presses instead of laser cut and weld tubes together. It was really the old school. And I just carried on with that old school fabrication method. And and here we are, Vykon. The name means performance. Yeah.
Brad, quick question on this side. You kind of gave us the gist of how the actual designing part of Vykon became, but take us a little bit into how you started to implement the marketing and the sales programs to get your product out.
Yeah. So there pops back Portable Shade. Portable Shade was a branding company working with a lot of big blue chip brands, Coca-Cola, Ford, BMW. I was doing the branding for all these people, and I was working with the agencies. So I got insight on how they would brand themselves and how they would get to market. And with my racing program and having a good name in the racing, all the motorbike shops knew me. The people knew AirAge. And sadly, when AirAge shut down, I was there to take over and pick up the pieces. So the marketing comes from a history of my knowledge of the industry, talking to people, understanding social media platforms, having created Anassis Racing already on social media, having had a good following myself, a fair amount of following on Facebook and Instagram. It was okay to plug Vykon on top of all of these tools,
right,
which made it a little bit easier. And then having relationships around the world, the Ricky Gadsons of the world, hey, knowing these guys and calling Ricky up and say, hey, listen, I'm building my own pipe now. Yeah, Brad, we've heard this story before, but hey, let me send you a pipe and you put it on the dyno, you go testing. Well, Ricky Gadsden made more horsepower than he's ever made on a ZX14 with a bike than any other pipe he had ever tested. Wow. So all of a sudden, he's getting all excited, and he's saying, Brad, I want to go super sport racing again because I've got newfound respect for the ZX14, and I think I can go and become competitive. And he's entered the XDA this year with Vykon. So that was a springboard. And then me just talking to people, and just trying to get them to accept a new brand, that's tough. The American consumer is a very tough cookie, and he's currently following 3 or 4 different brands.
Right.
And it's what they know, it's what they feel comfortable with. And slowly I will edge my way into the marketplace. and people will see.
Well, what's your biggest who are your biggest competitors in the States for the sport bike exhaust systems? Is that Vincent Hines?
Yeah, listen, no, Bansounds don't play in that space anymore.
Okay.
They're still the global leader is Acropovic, and it's distributed by Parts Unlimited. So they've got bucket loads of stock on hand,
Right.
and Acropovic employed thousands of people. So
Right,
they
right.
can manufacture and supply, and they're at the leading edge of technology. But nothing wrong with old school taking them on, and I've taken them on
Good for
horsepower.
you.
But we don't have the technology to fabricate finer details, so they can charge up there. We've come in at a good price point into the marketplace, and playing in the sport bike market is difficult. So we found a little niche market with BMW GS Adventure and
Mhm.
Triumph Adventure. We found Triumph 1200, the Tiger 900s. That's been a good market to us, GS. And now we will start getting our way with the ZX14s, with, like I said, with Ricky Ganson. We've got some customers going in the US. So slowly it will get into the sport bike market. I mean, I don't want to sell the other brands. And I always taught my riders this:
Understand.
never say you're riding a Honda. Never say the Suzuki and the Kawasaki. Just say the opposition brand. The guys who are out there know who's playing in the sport bike
That's
market
right.
besides Acropovic. I mean, there's M4, there's Graves, and there's Brox. So those are guys who know me well. They know me well. They know of me well, and they
Brad,
know I don't give up. You know.
Brad, let me ask you this: for your exhaust, when your exhaust system is put on, let's say a GS or one of the other bikes that it's made for, what has to do you have to map the bike?
Yeah, that's a good question. And you don't really have to map the bike if you don't want to. The standard ECU has a tolerance, and it can reset itself and adjust accordingly to the fueling needed. The window of going from a standard exhaust, the standard OEM pipe on a GSXR 1000 to putting a full system on there is maybe a 7% fuel change, 7 to 8% fuel change, where you've got to richen it up. And the standard ECUs can go between 5 and 10% in richening. And that's why they've got lambda sensors on it and O2 sensors. It's so that the ECU can adapt itself to optimize its fuel energy needed to run the combustion engine.
Hey guys, the show will be back in 1 minute right after a word from our sponsor.
Hey, One Gang, tired of feeling like your butt's taking more of a beating than your bike on those long rides? Introducing Butt Buffer, the ultimate solution to saddle soreness. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. These cushions are made from medical-grade viscoelastic polymer, scientifically crafted to eliminate pressure points and keep your circulation flowing. No more numb nuts or numb butts. And here's the best part. Butt Buffer cushions are made right here in the US for the last 30 years. From Harleys to Hondas, we've got a cushion to fit your ride perfectly. Plus, with styles ranging from sleek pebble polymer to luxurious sheepskin, there's a butt buffer for every rider's style. Get your butt buffer today at buttbuffer.com. That's buttbuffer.com. Your butt will thank you, and you'll ride longer and happier. We've got your butt covered.
So if I got a GS 1200 and I'm listening to this podcast and I'm interested in finding out about Vykon Exhaust for my bike, since you're saying it's become a little niche for those types of motorcycles, if I buy one of your exhausts, what do I have to do to my GS?
No, you do nothing.
Nice.
You do nothing.
Nice. So nothing
You-
changes. Killer.
Nothing changes.
And you get
Nothing
a little bit more horsepower on top of that.
For sure. And you've got the true sound of the engine. You know, the most of the bikes here in the US are all based on an EU spec
Right.
exhaust sound and exhaust emission control.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the EU and California, you would have bikes that sound true and genuine. And that's why a lot of people change the muffler. It's just to get a bit better crackle, a bit better enhanced sound out of a bike, not just performance. You know, you've got so much horsepower as it is. The true highway racer and drag racer is going to look for power. But there's a lot of guys out there who don't necessarily want power. They want just a better sound and a better looking pipe. And at the same time, you're taking off about 15 pounds.
Yeah.
off
We,
the bike.
we call it loud pipes save lives.
Save lives.
Yeah,
Oh, well, I have a whole marketing campaign around
absolutely, man. It's a must.
Yeah.
So with Vykon, did you experience any other challenges, or with I'm sure with Gatson and all the other great things you stumbled upon in the marketing and the exposure side. Was there anything else as far as specific challenges, either with manufacturing or?
Here's the challenge, and it's actually quite real. And I equate this to people. If BMW can't get it right and they have recalls, how can you expect a little factory like us to get it right?
Oh yeah.
So yes, we have challenges all the time. Fabrication challenges, production challenges, lead time challenges, shipping challenges. There's always something happening. I'm constantly trying to improve my product and make it better. In fact, this week I signed off on a new carbon fiber tip that's coming out that I believe is going to take us to another level. I've been refining and refining, but with that comes challenges. So you make a cap and then something else doesn't fit and something else has got to change. And so you just find a niche and then you go to production. And one thing I've learned in life is you can't hide yourself and your sales in a continuous evolvement of production. At some stage, you're going to say, this is my product, go to market with it, I'm going to sell. Instead of updating it because you want to be better and want to be better. That's what I want to do. But I've realized I can't be everything to everybody. We've got challenges. We are a factory. We try and overcome them every day. And we put our heads down hard.
That's what I love about this, man. That's what I love talking to individuals like yourself, entrepreneurs, that, you guys are honest. Nobody really sees the challenges that go on a day-to-day basis in a factory-based, production. But I wanted to ask you, your company, is it business to consumer, or do you have a middleman that sells your product?
Hey, I have a 3-tier platform as well. So I have business to consumer, I have business to dealer, and I have business to wholesaler.
Nice.
So I'm lucky that I am the manufacturer, and I've come to America with the vision of everything. I wanna get to the consumer, and how do I get there? Do I get there through a distributor and I share in the pie, get to the consumer? Because America is such a big place, you can't be everything to everybody.
Right.
So my reach is impossible for me to do it by myself. So I've got to be realistic on how I get to the consumer.
Yeah.
So I have a dealer program. The dealers make healthy margin. I have a distributor program. Distributors can make healthy margin. And when I sell a pipe at retail, I enjoy the fruits of my benefits there.
Definitely need somebody big name in the industry to be able to use your pipe and do some kind of a nice race that's publicly advertised, and then win the race and then be able to say right here, and then everything changes from there, man.
Hey, we got close at the last XDA event. Ricky Gadsden got into the semifinals. He's 25 pounds overweight than the other guys. So we know what we got to do and what it's going to take to win. So I believe Vykon will get there. We'll have our day in the light and we'll be able to enjoy and have fun while we're doing it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Take us a little bit into how you balance your time now. What's going on your end? I mean, you've got Vykon, you've got other things that you're trying to build business, you're traveling. How are you balancing this?
Hey, so I'm lucky that my skill set was born from running a business, employing 100 people, running a race team and racing myself and having a family. Hey, here's another thing. I'm a single figure handicap golfer.
Nice.
So
Nice.
I'm an avid golfer. I love the sport. I follow it. With closed eyes. I absolutely am besotted over golf, to be honest.
Who's your guy?
And so I grew up in the Ernie Els Diefquisten era, and it's so nice. I got involved in the Autism Foundation with Ernie. I sponsored some branding for them, so also right now I love the Live Golf Series. I'm a fun guy, I want to enjoy my time on the golf course. If I don't play well, I have a beer. I don't get emotional. It's not my job, but and then I enjoy it. I enjoy the scenery. So I enjoy the new guys that are around, the Brandon Grace, Louis Westhuizen. I follow the South African team, obviously. But I'm proud to say I'm here in America, and it's difficult. It was difficult to get here. It took me 5 years to get here. I've spent thousands and thousands of dollars. People don't want to know what it's taken to get here legitimately. And everybody says, hey, man, just go to Mexico, walk over the border,
Right.
Yeah.
I've got a wife and 2 kids. I've got 2 girls, 12 and 16. 16-year-old one is studying engineering. She wants to go and work at Formula One.
Nice.
So
Cool.
I follow car racing as well. And so a balance is very difficult. But the skill set that we were born with in South Africa, having to multitask. I mean, a lot of South Africans, yeah. Hey, who's the richest guy in the world? Where does he come from? Let's talk about Elon Musk. Where was he born? In the same town as me.
Wow.
And he went to a school around the corner from our school. So you look at the skill set. A lot of South Africans, yeah, in the American business scene that people don't even know about.
Right.
That are just multi-skilled because we've had to be multi-skilled. I'm taking on a few tasks now. It's like you say. So Vykon is 50% of my time, and I have another project which is taking up 50% of my time right now, and that is very difficult in its own. And having relocated countries,
Right.
to be able to keep your family happy, keep the kids happy, make sure that they've got everything they need, and at the same time, don't share too much of your non-sleepless nights trying to make sure that you can sell a few systems.
Right,
You know,
right.
that it's not easy. Trust me, it's not easy. You know,
Nope.
and we've all got challenges, but I'm not scared to admit it. And I'm just thankful to be here in America because it's a safe place to live. People don't realize what they've got until they don't have it.
You better believe it, man.
Absolutely.
And grow up in a country where it's third world. When you come here and I look around, I'm absolutely blessed.
Yeah, no question about it, man. People need to travel a little bit to different parts of the world to understand how good America is. And that's why it blows my mind when I see these assholes burning flags and doing all this stuff. It drives me up a wall. So, they need to, we need to send those people to those third world countries to really understand how good life is.
Oh, life's good here in America, I
That's
must tell you.
That's right.
Really, really good. You have some beautiful, beautiful areas.
Yep.
So with Vykon, what are your future goals and aspirations with industry trends constantly changing and innovation? What are you guys doing to stay ahead of the curve, and where do you see the company
Yeah.
down the
Well,
road?
listen, I mean, EV is a sensitive discussion because EV is edging its way into the motorcycle industry. We can see it. They're trying hard. I believe our window is still 20 years, in my opinion. The bikes will still be around. You know, I don't know. Cars might evolve faster, but I think motorcycles is going to take some time. You know, I don't believe Harley Davidson. You look at them; they've tried hard to play in that space unsuccessfully.
No, you can't survive it.
So
America's a tough market for that.
Exactly. And there's enough people here. I mean, if I look at how many motorcycles are sold, how many motorbike shops there are, the future is just me staying ahead of innovation without engineering myself. And my dad had a sticker up on the wall that said Imagineering. And that's something that's also in my brain. I don't want to be left behind, but I'm small enough to evolve fast enough. And I sort of know what looks good, and I just want to be there. I just want to be the guy that's supplying a great product at the right price to the consumer.
That's awesome.
And that's what I've got to do here in America. I've got to get them to believe and that Vykon's a good product, quality is good, and we can find our way around here.
You will 100%. Looking back at your career, both racing and business, what would you consider your biggest achievements and contributions to the motorsports industry that you've been very proud about?
Yeah, I'm very proud to say that when you reach a certain status in racing, in sport in South Africa, you are awarded your Springbok colors. We have a Springbok team that's gone to the Olympics. They're known as the Springboks. It's our national emblem. England have the rose. New Zealand have a petal. We have a Springbok because it's Africa. And when you reach the pinnacle of any sport and you're the number one guy, you get awarded with Springbok colors. And I was awarded with Springbok colors.
Nice.
So that is a plaque, and you get the blazer. It's a special ceremony, and that is like really, really pinnacle of achieving.
Congratulations.
You know? So,
that's cool.
yeah. yeah. So that is definitely a milestone. Being the fastest African on two wheels in the world, that's something to write about.
And your record
Um,
still stands?
yeah, yeah. The record in South Africa stands, but being the fastest African, born in the country of Africa, that's also something special.
Absolutely.
That would rank right up there. And then just winning a lot of championships, but also just being an overall general all round guy. I got a great family. They mean a lot to me. And yeah, just being enthusiastic about tomorrow.
Awesome.
I woke up this morning and I was smiling and I was saying it was raining and I was like, I'm in America. It's raining, so what? I just think, to be alive is like you're 50% there.
That's right. That's right.
You got health, you're another 50% there, and the rest you make happen, for
Great,
yourself.
great attitude, buddy. Great attitude. No question
Yeah.
about it.
Amen. You're on the wake up list. So your passions also extend out beyond what you're doing with your business. You've also got interest in golf and also mountain biking and
Oh,
cooking.
yeah, we
Tell
still
us a little bit about
Well,
your
my
free
wife's
time.
quite a fitness fanatic. She trains hard, so I had to keep up, and I had to find a sport that she enjoyed doing with me. I was playing golf.
Okay.
I was racing. Golf is a guy sport. I tried to get her to play golf. She didn't want to know my
Hey,
story.
tell Annika Sonstrom that.
Yeah, I wish. I mean, I would. If she was my wife, I would play golf more, But so I had to find something that my wife enjoyed. So I did a launch for Norco bicycles built in Canada, and I launched their brand in South Africa. And the boss of the company said, "Hey, yeah, take 2 bicycles for you and your wife, and come and ride with us." And we grabbed some bicycles. We went riding, and my wife said, "Wow, I like this."
Nice.
So I cheated
Yeah.
her out, got her helmets, got gear, and away we went. And we started tackling some races together. And she kicked
Nice.
my ass. She was so good. We would hit these 5 miles uphills, like straight uphills. She would
Yeah.
ride away from me. But when it came to downhills, I let the brakes go and I passed her again. So we did a few 3-day races together, and it was really great. And we got into it, So we brought our bicycles over to the US, and we've been cycling around here as well on weekends. And kids have got bicycles. They're more on their phones and tablets and computers now than what they are riding. Which, yeah, it is what it is, but they've got bicycles and we do take them riding with us, and it's so great, So yeah, the reason mountain biking is because it's something I can do with my wife.
That's cool. That's cool.
That's really cool.
Brad-
What about cooking?
Oh, God, sorry.
What's that, Ben?
You also enjoy cooking, is that right?
Oh, hey, I cook every night, and that's the strangest thing because I lived by myself for many years here in the US when I was racing, and when I went back to South Africa, I was by myself. Always had girlfriends around, but I loved food so much, I would cook for myself, and I loved my cooking. Then when I met my wife, she tried to make one meal for me, and I said to her, "No, listen, baby, this is going to work. You start at the kitchen, I'll do the cooking." And so we just ate, and having traveled around the world, I ate the best food in the world. I got to meet the best chefs,
Nice.
and a lot of the chefs were all motor racing guys, and I used to invite them to the racing, and we became friends. So we go to all the top restaurants in South Africa as we travel, and then around the world, we knew where to eat, and I became an absolute foodie. Having lived in Japan for a while, got stuck into Kobe beef
Oh, the
and Wagyu, and then
Yeah.
in Italy, I raced for Ducati, so I got to go to Bologna a lot, and I loved the Italian food. And then traveled the world with my wife before we had kids and set up portable shade around the world. We ate at the fine restaurants, and I was really spoiled. So I'd come home and try and mimic the food we just ate, and
Yeah.
I loved it, absolutely loved it. And then having girls, they also knew daddy's cooking tonight, and every day my mouth's actually watering because I'm so passionate about food. During the day, I'd think what I want to make, and then my wife would phone me at like 5 o'clock and say, "What are we having for dinner?" And I'd have worked out during the day. It's like going around the racetrack thinking about business. I'm going around in business all day, and I'm
Dinner.
thinking, what am I gonna eat?
50% business, 50% cooking.
In South Africa, we could eat the best of the best. The food is
Oh,
very
yeah.
cheap in third world countries.
Yes.
In third world countries, they eat first to live. Yeah, you live to eat.
To eat.
You have to work to eat. The other way around, they eat and then they go work. So that is interesting, and that's a great question about the food. And it forms part of my whole passion for life.
Mhm.
I love making sandwiches during the day, and the sandwich has got to be nice. It's got to have flavor. It's got to come with
Yeah.
some pizzazz to it.
Yes. So one of my favorite South African cooking elements or aspects is a braai. Did you have a braai when you were over in South Africa?
Man.
Can you explain what that is for the
Yeah,
listeners?
so and that
It's the
Braai,
coolest concept ever.
BRAI is probably one of the famous words. It's a handful of words. Braai, biltong. Biltong is jerky.
I was going to ask about biltong next.
Oh man! So you
Yes.
got to braai. We braaied. We had an outdoor kitchen, and I would cook outside, not on gas, on wood burning. Quickly fire it up, and I'd have a hair dryer, believe it or not, and I would get a fire hot in 1 minute, absolutely hot, to put a thick 2-inch T-bone steak or a
Nice.
porterhouse.
Yep.
Ribeye is only American, by the way. It's nowhere else in the world you get ribeye. The rest of the cuts in the world are sirloin, rump, T-bone, fillet, those type of things. America's very much the ribeye cut. I'm not sure why. But yeah, we would do a braai, cook the meat outside. We would eat meat 3 times a week. Big slab.
Yeah.
Nice.
And
That's awesome.
yeah. And then everything else on the fire. Braai, you do chicken on the fire, fish on the fire, and it's just how you do it. So it's an open wood burning fireplace with a grid, and that's how you cook it very hot, very low to the fire that it caramelizes meat, and then you let it rest for 10 minutes, slice it up, pink in the middle, beautiful on the outside. And then biltong is dried meat, but a thick slab of meat. So just less than an inch thick, a nice big piece of meat. Put it through vinegar in seconds, and then roll it in a spice. My mouth's watering. Roll
Mine too.
in a crusty of coriander, black pepper, coarse salt, and a few spices, and then hang it to dry. You just hang it in a room, and it dries. It cure dries
For how long?
about 3 days.
3 days. Wow.
And then you cut it up. It's red in the middle, pink on the outside. You can Google biltong supplies in the US. They are everywhere. The whole of Florida is full of them. And it's the nicest, soft meat. It melts in your mouth. It's not jerky that's tough. Jerky is dried in a evaporating machine.
And biltong, it looks like a paper cutter almost. The
Yes.
tool for slicing biltong. One of my best friends is South African and it's just the most incredible biltong.
I love it. We all came over with our biltong making machine.
I'm sure.
Yes.
See you guys. See
So
one.
good.
See one gang. Not only do you get motorcycle information, we have a cooking show at the end too. So,
Hey, I can give you some tips on a golf swing as well.
Brad,
Yes, please. I'll take those.
Brad, where can people find you? How can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, Vykon-exhaust.com. Vykon-exhaust.com is the American site. Pretty easy to find.
We'll link it in the show notes too.
Yeah, if you can link it in the show,
course.
Vykon-exhaust.com. You can go online, pick your motorcycle, order your system. We are busy updating the site now with galleries. And like I said, the new Vykon muffler called the Slash Cut has just been released in the factory. I've approved everything. Next week it's in production, and that's going to be the next beautiful exhaust system to hit the US.
Awesome, man.
That's
That's awesome. That's all right, my man. You ready for the speed round questions?
Yeah, hit it.
All right, let's do it, man. We're gonna put 2 minutes on the clock. No right or wrong answer. Ben will put you through this test.
Okay, hit it.
All right, ready to go?
Yep.
First question, what is your favorite motorcycle you've ever owned or ridden?
I'd say my Suzuki Hayabusa Turbo, 800 horsepower. Knocks the shit out of me.
800 horsepower. Insane.
All right, if you could have any superpower to use while riding or racing, what would it be?
Fitness.
Fitness?
If I was
best
fitter,
place-
I'd be able to go longer, go harder. If you're fit, you can really win races. I take my hat off to MotoGP guys.
Seems like you learned that lesson from your wife on the bicycles.
Yep.
Here's a fun one I want to know your answer to. Best place you've ever ridden and why?
Yeah. On a farm in Wollongong with Troy Corser, World Superbike champion. He took me riding on his farm. We got to a river. He hit it flat out, came around a corner, jumped over this river. Must have been a 40-foot jump, just
Wow.
straight over the river. And I came and and stopped and nearly fell in the water. Beautiful experience. I'll never forget that in my life.
That's cool.
Coming down a mountain, flat out around trees, and you hit a jump, flat over a river. Just beautiful.
Man, that sounds incredible. So what is your guilty but go-to pleasure for an alcoholic beverage? And if you don't drink, what's your go-to snack?
Hey, biltong is my go-to snack. I only started drinking when I was about 24, 25, because like I said, we grew up in a family with zero alcohol.
Yep.
When I went through the military, never smoked. We were really focused. My go-to drink is Jack Daniels. Went to visit Jack Daniels in Lynchburg, bought the barrel, did the whole thing.
Wasn't that awesome?
Cool.
That is such an awesome tour, man. We did that too, man. I love that.
Oh, I'm a Jack Daniels fan.
All right, awesome.
JD.
Awesome.
That's cool. Okay, if you could time travel, which era would you go to and why?
Oh man, I want to be a gangster in the 50s. And see myself next to El Capone, my hat on, and living the era with the old cars and the Tommy guns. And that's an era. And when motorcycles had just come on board, when they started evolving.
Right.
Oh, I would love that.
That's a great answer.
So quickly. That makes me think that that's another thing that you've thought about while you're 10 bike lengths ahead.
Yeah,
of everybody
50% racing, 50% gangster.
Oh man, gotta enjoy life.
For sure.
Favorite motorcycle movie of all time?
Oh, you gotta be On Any Sunday, Bobby Brown.
Oh, nice.
I mean, I get goosebumps just thinking about it, On Any Sunday, and the music he chose, and the whole show, how it was put on.
Yeah, like a documentary style. Yeah, it was awesome.
Unbelievable.
All right, who was your movie crush when you were a teenager?
It must be John Travolta. I mean, you got to watch Grease Lightning. You're a youngster with who wants a car with flames that come out the exhaust.
All right.
There you go. All right. Yeah, if you could meet and have dinner with one person at any point in history, who would it be?
That's a tricky one. I mean, do you think about influential people like maybe Nelson Mandela, who came around and changed the way South Africa was set to evolve, and it didn't evolve like he envisaged. I can imagine turning his grave. Or do you pick somebody that was revolutionary in the motorcycle industry? There's a few top engineering designers. Pieter Blanche would be one of them, who was with Ducati for many years. And then you've got the guys who are still influential in the motor industry. There's so many. Would be a difficult one. I wouldn't pick a movie star. It'd be somebody who was engineering driven. There's a gentleman I really respect and enjoy, Eskel Suter Engineering out of Switzerland. They build MotoGP bikes, 500 two-stroke. There's some very interesting people in the world that I would love to spend some time with.
Nice.
So I can't nail it on the head right now,
okay.
off
That's a
the
hard
bat.
question to answer.
Yeah.
All right, next question is, if you were president, what's one law you would change to impact the motorcycle community?
Hey, I'd make everybody wear helmets in Florida. I just can't believe people ride without helmets on. I'd probably make them wear gloves as well. Be difficult, because until you've crashed, so that would be a law. I mean, if I just look at how I can influence it, would be motorcycle driven.
Yep.
Yeah, and you've had enough experience on 95, I imagine, to see how
Yep.
important that is.
Yep.
Okay, if you could get up on stage and sing or jam with one band, who would it be?
In Excess.
In excess. All
Nice.
Right. All right. Good answer.
Sweet. I haven't gotten that one yet. Here's a fun one. What's the best prank you've ever pulled on another rider or an employee or family member?
Hey, we love life, as I'm sure you've gathered from my my interview, and there's many. There's too many. There's a few that I can't mention on a podcast.
Okay.
But we've had great fun as a race team. In our Pentechnican rig that I built for the team, and we've had some great time as a team and pulled the piss out of sponsors and riders and
Yes.
journeys along the way, And then my golfing friends, played a lot of top golf tournaments in South Africa as an amateur, and we had a lot of fun.
That's cool. All right, what's the most memorable, either funny or scary, place that you've had to stay overnight on a road trip?
Yeah, we bought a motorcycle a friend of mine, we were traveling in the US about 97, 98. We came out here, bought a motorcycle on Cycle Trader, went to fetch the bike where it was snowing. We had to put the bike in the back of the little, we had like a Chevy Blazer. We had to put the bike in the back.
Wow.
And we took the front end out with the toolkit that was under the seat. And the dealership that we bought it from, it closed. It was snowing. Slid the bike in the back, and we had to sleep inside the van, and it was snowing. Because we couldn't
Holy
drive out of there to get to the downtown, to the hotel. We were stuck in the mountain. Had the car idling the whole night to keep it warm. That I can remember like it was yesterday.
That's crazy. It's funny how we remember those things so easily. You know, they stick in your head. Okay, if you could challenge any celebrity to a motorcycle race, who would it be and why?
Brad Pitt, just because his name's Brad. You know, he does all these great movies with him riding a motorcycle. You know, and I know it's a stunt guy, so that would be quite.
Made the best Brad win.
That's it.
Yeah, maybe Brad Pitt stunt man.
Yeah,
That might be a better race.
yeah.
Okay, last dinner ever, what would it be?
Oh man, it would probably be a Wagyu T-bone in a top New York Manhattan steakhouse.
Nice.
Ooh, now my mouth's watering again. So besides the One Gang Worldwide podcast, what's your favorite podcast, or what other podcast do you listen to these days?
Hey, I'm a virgin at this. This is my first podcast.
Awesome, man.
So,
All right.
guys have introduced. I hope I've done okay in the podcast.
You've done great.
Oh, you're awesome.
But this is
Yeah.
my first one.
Well,
All right, I'm going to change that.
Well,
then. What's
we're
your
happy
favorite-
to pop your cherry for you. So,
What's your favorite book as of late that you've read?
So I'm not really an avid reader, but if I can say, if I've watched a good movie, I enjoy the soapies with my wife, and like I'm just trying to think now. We rewatched the whole Suits program
yeah,
because it's a
Suits
new
was great.
and she being an attorney, it's nice to share those type of shows. You know, there's actually too many in my brain for me to pick short term.
It's all right.
Well, you survived the speed round, Brad.
Congratulations,
Oh.
buddy. You made it, man.
Ah.
Hey, just wanted to, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule, coming on the show, man. We are very, very happy that you got a chance to share your story, especially just recently coming to the States, building a business here in the States. You can see that your product and your exhaust system, which you guys are building, is going to be something special. You can just tell based on the things that you've provided for the audience and been able to showcase with us. So we wish you nothing but success. We'd like to probably have you on the show sometime next year.
Sure.
Once this new released exhaust comes out, and
Yes.
to get into more detail about what's been happening over the last couple of years with Vykon.
Yeah, no, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity to talk to the consumers and the American public. I think it's great.
Absolutely. Thank you, Brad. This is a really fun one. We appreciate you sharing all the insight.
You're welcome. guys.
Keep dreaming, buddy, and keep creating, man. That's what
Yeah.
that's what you're amazing at.
It's at first there's a dream.
Yep.
Yes, sir. Take care, Brad. Thank you.
Okay, guys,
Thank
look
you.
after yourself.
Yes, sir. You too.